The morning light over Washington falls sharply across the south lawn of the White House as President Donald Trump steps forward. The familiar hum of cameras and the brisk movement of Secret Service agents creating an atmosphere that suggests something more than a routine address. His posture is confident, almost defiant, reflecting a presidency that has doubled down on hardline promises, especially on immigration and national security. As he approaches the press, the latest announcement from his administration is already stirring uncertainty from Miami to Havana, from the streets of Caracas to the crowded neighborhoods of Port-au-Prince. The United States is suspending the processing of citizenship and residency applications for migrants from 19 countries, including Cuba, Venezuela, and Haiti. The decision is not merely a bureaucratic adjustment or another policy memo tucked into the vast machinery of federal immigration control. It represents a decisive escalation of Trump's long-standing pledge to overhaul what he has repeatedly called a broken, abused, and dangerously permissive immigration system. Officials briefed reporters earlier in the week, hinting that something significant was coming, citing heightened security concerns and internal evaluations conducted after a deadly attack near the White House. But the scale of the suspension was larger than most had expected, affecting thousands of families who had already applied, waited, and in many cases built the foundations of a new life in the United States. The administration's explanation is straightforward but sweeping. These countries, primarily in Latin America, the Caribbean, and parts of Africa, were already under travel restrictions imposed in June. Now, the government argues stricter vetting and national security concerns require a temporary halt to any progress toward residency or naturalization. In effect, this measure freezes not only the legal process, but the hopes of many who believed they were nearing the final steps toward legal stability. In recent months, Trump has adopted an even more confrontational posture toward Venezuela under President Nicolas Maduro, whom Washington accuses of allowing drug trafficking networks to operate with state protection. The White House insists that the large U.S. military deployment in the Caribbean is aimed at cracking down on narcotics routes and deterring criminal operations. But in Caracas, the government sees the build-up differently, accusing Washington of preparing the ground for an attempt to destabilize or even remove Maduro through coercive pressure. Venezuelan state media has portrayed the deployment as a threat to sovereignty, and there is growing anxiety that U.S. naval activity could escalate into a confrontation at sea. Footage released by the U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, has only added to the tension. Shared widely on social media, the clips show dramatic nighttime operations, speedboats intercepted, loudspeaker warnings, bursts of gunfire aimed at vessels the U.S. describes as drug smuggling boats. The images play into Trump's message that the United States is taking aggressive action to protect its borders, even far from its coastline. His online supporters have celebrated the footage as evidence that Washington is finally confronting criminal syndicates that earlier administrations failed to contain. Critics, however, warn that the optics risk masking a deeper political strategy, using security operations to justify increasingly restrictive immigration measures. Cuba, another country caught in the policy freeze, occupies a uniquely symbolic place in U.S. foreign policy. More than 60 years after the imposition of the American trade embargo, the island remains trapped in a cycle of economic hardship, political repression, and emigration. Generations of Cubans have sought refuge in the United States, often claiming political persecution, economic desperation, or both. The latest restrictions now place thousands of Cuban applicants in limbo just as the country struggles with shortages of fuel, medicine, and food. In Havana, the streets move slowly, aging cars puffing exhaust down wide boulevards, bicycles weaving through traffic, and people walking past government buildings with a mix of resignation and endurance. For families hoping to reunite with relatives in Miami, Tampa, or Houston, the sudden halt in U.S. processing feels like a door slammed shut without warning. Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, faces an even more dire reality. Over the past 3 years, the nation has plunged into a devastating humanitarian crisis fueled by gang warfare, political instability, and collapsing public infrastructure. Armed groups control entire neighborhoods of Port-au-Prince, displacing tens of thousands of people and disrupting access to hospitals, schools, and food supplies. International organizations have described Haiti as a state on the brink of total institutional breakdown. Many of its citizens see migration, legal or otherwise, as their only path to safety and survival. The U.S. government's new suspension leaves Haitian migrants in an especially precarious situation, effectively trapping them between the dangers they fled and the impossibility of gaining legal status in the United States. Senior officials in Washington say that the final catalyst for the policy tightening was a tragic shooting near the White House that left one member of the National Guard dead. The suspect, an Afghan national, was quickly detained and charged with murder. According to authorities, he has pleaded not guilty. Within the administration, the attack has been seized upon as evidence that security vulnerabilities persist and that the immigration system requires urgent reinforcement. Members of Trump's inner circle argue that national security must come first, even if the measures introduced cause hardship for law-abiding migrants. The attack scene itself still carries the signs of chaos: yellow police tape, armored vehicles, officers standing shoulder to shoulder with National Guard members scanning the perimeter. It is the kind of dramatic tableau that reinforces the administration's message that threats are real, immediate, and unpredictable. Within hours of the shooting, political allies of the president began demanding stronger screening procedures and broad restrictions on migration from countries deemed high risk. When Trump addressed reporters, he emphasized that America cannot take chances at a time when global instability is rising and adversaries are watching for weaknesses. Inside Washington, reactions have been polarized. Supporters of the president point to what they describe as the dangerous failures of previous governments to control the border or prevent individuals with questionable backgrounds from entering the United States. They argue that the new suspension is a necessary and temporary step to protect national security and ensure that immigration programs are not exploited by hostile actors. Some lawmakers have gone further, calling for a complete overhaul of the asylum system, faster deportations, and increased cooperation with regional allies to manage migration flows before they reach U.S. territory. But critics, including human rights advocates, immigration attorneys, and several influential members of Congress, say the measure is excessive and risks punishing families who have followed the legal process precisely as required. Many applicants from Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela have spent years navigating the labyrinth of interviews, background checks, biometric procedures, and financial documentation demanded by U.S. immigration authorities. Freezing their cases without a clear timeline for resumption creates uncertainty and emotional distress that, according to advocacy groups, undermines America's long-standing role as a refuge for the persecuted. Diplomatic tensions are rising as well. The governments of Cuba and Venezuela have already condemned the move, accusing the United States of discrimination and political manipulation. Caracas insists that Washington is targeting its citizens not for security reasons, but to intensify pressure on Maduro's government. Cuba, although more measured in its rhetoric, has described the suspension as an unjustifiable administrative aggression that contradicts previous commitments to expand lawful pathways for migration. Haiti, overwhelmed by internal crises, has yet to issue a formal statement, but Haitian civil society groups warn that blocking legal migration will almost certainly lead to more irregular migration attempts by sea and land. The visuals coming from the Caribbean reinforce this sense of broader geopolitical tension. U.S. naval assets continue to patrol international waters near Venezuela, sometimes capturing dramatic footage of high-speed chases with suspected traffickers. The administration insists these operations are part of an intensified anti-drug campaign, but regional analysts say they signal something more, a shift in U.S. posture that uses military presence not only for law enforcement, but also as a strategic leverage point in ongoing political disputes. In Venezuela, the pressure is deeply felt. The country's economy remains severely compromised by hyperinflation, oil production shortages, and long-running U.S. sanctions. Food lines, blackouts, and shortages remain everyday realities. Families in Caracas, Maracaibo, and Valencia, who hope to join relatives in the United States, now face a suspended process that may take months, if not years, to restart. Many Venezuelan Americans fear their parents, siblings, or children will be trapped indefinitely in a system that has become both politically charged and administratively unpredictable. Cuba's situation is different, but no less severe, a combination of the U.S. embargo, inefficient governance, and the collapse of tourism during recent global disruptions has created a painful economic contraction. Shortages of fuel and medicine have worsened, triggering long lines for basic supplies and rising frustration among citizens. The suspension of U.S. immigration processing further compounds the desperation of families who had viewed relocation as a means to rebuild their lives. In Haiti, the consequences may be the harshest of all. The country's spiraling gang violence, much of it centered around the capital, Port-au-Prince, has displaced thousands, closed schools, and crippled the movement of goods across the country. Humanitarian missions struggle to reach certain neighborhoods controlled by armed groups. For Haitians hoping to escape the turmoil, America has long represented the last hope. Now, even that hope seems to be slipping away. Inside Washington, experts warn that freezing legal pathways often leads to a rise in irregular or dangerous migration attempts. When people see the legal door closing, they turn to riskier alternatives, entrusting their fate to smugglers, undertaking perilous sea journeys, or attempting to cross borders clandestinely. The administration insists that the policy is temporary and will be reviewed as security assessments evolve, but history suggests that such suspensions are rarely short-lived. The political context cannot be ignored. With Trump in his second term and immigration remaining one of his signature issues, the move plays strongly to his base ahead of midterm battles and legislative confrontations with Congress. The images released by the Secretary of War U.S. boats intercepting suspicious vessels are part of a broader narrative campaign reinforcing the message that the administration is acting boldly to protect the nation. Meanwhile, footage from Havana, Caracas, and Port-au-Prince appears on American screens as a reminder of the instability that Trump argues necessitates these policies. As police and National Guard members maintain their posts near the scene of the Washington shooting, the connection between domestic security and global migration policy becomes politically intertwined. Trump's team is eager to frame the tragic killing of the National Guard member as evidence that the system must be tightened immediately. Opponents counter that one incident, while tragic should not be used to justify sweeping restrictions on migrants who have no connection to the crime. The story unfolding across the Americas is one of political struggle, humanitarian distress, and competing narratives about security and compassion. The decision to halt citizenship and residency processing for migrants from 19 countries will reshape the lives of thousands and alter U.S. relations with a region already strained by sanctions, military deployments, and deep ideological divides. From the White House lawn to the Caribbean Sea, from the streets of Caracas to the battered neighborhoods of Port-au-Prince, the human impact of this policy is beginning to reveal itself. Families wait, uncertain and anxious. Governments react with anger or silence. And the United States, long seen as a beacon for those seeking refuge, enters yet another chapter in its complex and contentious battle over immigration, sovereignty, and national identity. In the coming weeks, the consequences of this suspension will become clearer, but the uncertainty it unleashes is already shaping conversations from Washington to the Caribbean. Families wait for answers that may not arrive soon, trapped between bureaucratic paralysis and political calculation. For now, America's message is unmistakable. National security has taken precedence over migration, diplomacy, and even long-standing humanitarian commitments. As the world watches, the question looming over this policy is whether it marks a temporary response to crisis or the beginning of a far more permanent shift in how the United States chooses who gets to belong.